We have two guests from Germany and two doctoral students. First, we have Nelly Spider. She is a research associate at the Campus as the chair of international politics, faculty of social science at the Ruhr University, Bochum, Germany. Her academic supervisor is Professor Dr. Diaz, and Stefan Schön. Stefan Schön is my first supervisor. Very kind. Thank you. In sociology. Yes, he's the Buchverpflichtung in sociology and Stefan Schön is national. Very good. The combination. Yes. There is a research project for her PhD thesis, has as focus development policy preferences on middle sized emerging countries. A study of South Korea, Turkey, Mexico, and how these preferences are being constructed based on foundational and material. And she's developing this situation as part of the Graduate School of Education Research Center. And she has previously worked as a guest researcher at the German Development Institute, and she has also been to Mexico earlier, right? Or no? No, this is the first time here. This is the first time. Oh, yes, correct. But we actually have met in Germany. Yes. So I'm very happy to have her, and we are forward. Now, I will also introduce to you Melanie Nayeli Yashala. She's also a PhD student at the Faculty of Social Science, Sociology, Organization, Migration and Participation at the Ruhr University of Bochum. She has academic supervisors. First supervisor is the Professor Dr. Lilian Reyes, and another of her supervisors is Dr. Liliana Rivera. Melanie was a research assistant at the Guillermo Alejandro Chair in Colmex in 2017. She did a master's in geography with one semester at UNAM. And she is now developing this research project under a special scholarship of the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation in Germany. We're very happy to have both of you here. You're very welcome. We're also saying welcome to our students from Instituto Mora. And we have a special commentator here, Dr. Pano, who is a full-time professor at the Department of International Studies at the Universidad Iberoamericana, American University in Mexico City, Santa Fe. Dr. Urbano has several years of experience researching on migration issues in Central America and Mexico, most Europe. He carries several publications in international journals and editorials, both in Latin America and in the English. So, thanks to all of you. Now we would like to begin with the presentations of Nelly's first and then Tori's first.
Thank you very much. My name is Nelly Spider again. I'm from the University Chair of International Politics. And here is our university in Bochum to make it more like the visual.
Where is Bochum?
Bochum is very close to Düsseldorf area. So it's like 25 minutes to Düsseldorf by train. So yeah. It's a small city, but there's a huge campus, so a lot of students and a lot of different departments. So yes. And I'm research associate, but I will start actually in April, so it's very new that I'm starting as the chair of international politics. And as I said, my supervisor is Stefan Schön, and my second supervisor is Elizabeth Fries. And I conduct my studies on emerging. And today I'd like to introduce you very briefly what my PhD project is about, and also my focus on Mexico, because here for my field research, I'm conducting interviews with experts, government officials, and some interest groups in Mexico, and that's why I wanted to share my the Mexican part of the project. So let me start how I came to this. So as you know, in global aid governments, there is now South emerging donors, their international cooperation, and so on. So we can, very simply divide them as traditional and emerging donors. So traditional donors refer to Western countries, also the DAC members, traditional ones, and who have been doing this national aid for a long time now. And emerging donors, a group of non-OECD or non-DAC donors from the South. They have also been, of course, allocating aid or like doing international cooperation, but recently they became more important as the aid, more like global aid government, more and more important, and especially the importance of different stakeholders was increasing. And so of course, it also depends on their rapid economic growth, recently an increasing regional and global influence, and that they are willing to actively participate into global decision-making processes, including international cooperation. So the idea was this, and then we have very emerging donors, which are very popular ones in great countries: Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, and China. But also we have middle-sized countries, and they are not often considered as middle powers as well. So I wanted to focus on middle powers because I feel like they are not studied enough as much as the big powers. And I looked at my PhD project focused on development policy preferences and through the cases of Mexico. They all, these three countries are considered as middle powers and part of this MICA grouping where Mexico, Indonesia, Korea, Turkey, and Australia. And but they are also considered middle powers, where they actually global governance issues as a one of the labels that they put global citizenship, importance of multilateralism and so on. So these countries development cooperation. Although they are all actively involved in international development cooperation at aid programs. And also, although they have similar goals to be part of the global aid governance issues, but they have diverging preferences towards development policy. And then my hypothesis is that these controversies of governmental positions towards development policies can correlate with differences in material interests and societal ideas, which are prevalent in domestic politics of these countries. So, in the end, I look at the societal societal basis, which defines different ideas and interests, and then defines governmental positions. And accordingly, the approach conceptualizes the conditions for the prevalence of interests on basis of. So I will explain it more in detail now. But first of all, I just want to really quickly go through Mexican case. So as you know, Mexico, in the system level approaches like international relations, we see Mexico as a middle power and international development cooperation too. Rich nation as a creator of South and North. How government also defines it. Also, it also has a regional importance as well as global, and also economic and also in America and South America as well, but most specifically Central America is very important. And then we see during this 2010, around 2010, we see that the institutionalization of and where for example, level of international was enacted, and then established an economic seat as a agency for cooperation in Mexico's G20 presidency. Gave it more like a global importance as well as a middle power as well, and that government defined its position as a global actor, and which was constantly development will also emphasis on this two-way bridge nation as well. And then in the end, establishment of NICTA in 2013, where this Indonesia, Korea, Turkey, Australia just declared that they are not the powers that they have. They are like-minded peers in terms of liberal economies and different and reflecting these aspects of democracies and so on. So this is where, like, this is also one of the reasons for, like, this, how to say, there is some increasing importance, also increasing activity of these countries during this period. Along with Mexico, of course, Turkey and Korea was eager players in international issues and more specific international development cooperation. And so to summarize here, this systematic approach looks mostly at how they are identify themselves as middle powers or regional powers or southern emerging powers internationally. But there are, I think, there are less studies on domestic level. This was the idea why I decided to do it, and also at the same time, I think domestic level is very important because there are some idea-driven aspects and also interest-driven aspects in the development policies. So that's why I felt the important need of looking at it. And accordingly, I use societal approach, and this is suggested by Schumacher, my super. And its basis is from liberal theories, like how ideas, interests, and institutions actually define international level as well. By societal ideas, what I mean is that what the theory means is that it is the fundamental expectations of society about how politics should govern policy. And in this aspect, the theory looks at voters because the idea is that government is responsive to voters, so voters' expectations. And it says that is evident by public opinion polls and society behavioral patterns. And it's differentiated between like process ideas and process ideas refers to how the decision making is realized in a country. So whether it's more majoritarian or and content ideas look more at like the content of the idea. What a society sees as a core task of the state making policy. And I will come to that again in the Mexican case. And then we have other variables as material interest, and this is mostly the economic consideration of the domestic sector. So we look at business groups or some like influential interest groups in the society, like trade unions, business associations, and how and or whether they have some interest in like this like specific policy taken by the government, and for that the statements of sectors or like assess the motivation of sectoral lobbying or not. So then the third part is that a condition for prevalence. In the end, when we look at the public opinion polls, voters' expectations, and then interest groups, and then we just correlate with governmental statements of how government position itself, and then to see which prevails, whether ideas prevail in governmental decision making or interest. So to make it more to clarify, I want to go to Mexico to understand it better. As we see that, by the way, I'm looking at Calderon's application because, as I showed you, the increasing institutionalization of Mexican development cooperation and also Mexico's emergence as a middle emerging donor falls into this period. Like until during this government period, there are some decision taken, and then Mexico is becoming more and more important. So that's why I felt the need of looking at Calderon's administration. And government, when we look at the government statements, we see two different aspects. So idea-driven aspects and interest-driven aspects. So idea-driven aspects are the very most relevant for Mexico and also Korea and Turkey. The identity, for Mexican case, identity shared with the Latin American community. But for example, for Turkish case, it's more religious-based, like identity as a Muslim country or like more conservative. But for Korea, for example, it's more global, like global identity, the global Korea and really power. And solidarity, because of this Turkish shared experience with the South. So we see this in almost all the Southern donors that they first their Southern America. And then also interest-driven aspects, which are economic interest in the region, because government does not only refer to education aspects, but also interest in the region as well, which would maybe more like based on mutual interest with this Central America, but in the end there are some interests. So then I asked, what are the values, ideas, shaping governmental preference, and which one of them prevails. And for that, I looked at bilateral economic assistance because bilateral economic assistance shows some governmental preference compared to multilateral one. Because in the end, for multilateral cooperation, multilateral institutions define or they decide which countries to allocate aid or join have cooperation. And that's why I look at bilateral economic assistance and specifically Central American. I look at the priority part of the country. And then I look at the case study of the Qatar Fund, because during this period, the only financial proposal and other are more technical cooperation, and they don't really involve any like economic interest aspect. So that's why I also had to take some like development cooperation, which includes also economic aspect of compare ideas and interests. And then of course the thing is this Yucatan Fund was between 2012 or 13 to 2017, it was already operated, but in the end the idea is that the decisions were taken during the parallel, although it was not implemented. But since I'm looking at the decision-making process, it makes more sense to look at decisions before the initiatives were compared. Yes, and like this is a very sketch at the moment, because at the moment I am actually here to understand these dynamics in Mexican cooperation, and I have conducted interviews. My mind is just like really changes and okay, what to think of and so on. But initially, I was just thinking like for Mexico, for many different process ideas, majoritarian decision making is more strong because of the political culture which has been shaped until now by this hierarchical leadership structure, and we see very strong president. And also with the content ideas, of course, I look at the society's perception of its identity in relation to Latin America. How, because government always like emphasizes that we are part of Latin America. We are having our development cooperation with this because we have so much in common, so we share the identity. So that's why I look at the society's perception of its identity, plus solidarity with poorer countries. Also southern, I would say, but in general also how societies, how their beliefs are shaping. And for the two interests, actually, I had in mind that there must be, like, when we look at the Yucatan Fund specifically, I just came up with three sectors. So I think construction sector is the most important one, and because Yucatan Fund is basically infrastructure fund for, and also of course hard infrastructure projects. And I also look at about that. And also aid trade linkages, because government especially emphasizes that 65% of the road and bridge modernization projects conducted under Yucatan Fund would allow 95% of the trade. So it's very, very simple. Simply, we can understand that actually there are some trade-related interests. And for that, of course, as he researcher, I look at the important business associations. So Mexican Council of Businessmen, Mexican Business Community Council, CCE, Mexican Association of Businessmen, Coparmex, or the Council for Foreign Trade, COMSE. And actually, recently, my supervisor also suggested me to look at the trade union. So I'm not so sure if they have a role, but in the end, I'm also planning to look at trade unions as well, whether they also have some interest in this or not. And finally, yes, and come to my practices, by the way. Yeah, 3 minutes more. Oh, 3 minutes, yeah. Fine. So, everything starts this very quickly. So, if finance for economic assistance to Central America directly affects sector specific interests, then this interest prevail for societal ideas because of strong lobbying. But then if there is a diffuse interest on the side of domestic groups, and also society like cooperation issues are also raised, then ideas would shape Mexican government. This is because lobbying would be used. So I think it is a liberal theory, and also this is how also I think, of course, it also changes, but interest groups play a role, I feel like, and then if they are not really interested in the position or diffusely interested, let's say, then ideas are more likely to shape the governmental preferences. This is project. And then this is a very simple how to say, simple roadmap how I'm looking at it. So there are two conditions, whether fundamental questions are raised or cost-benefit calculations are made. And then in each case, for example, if fundamental questions are raised, then we look at voters' expectations. So what are they expecting from government? And if cost-benefit calculations are raised, then lobbying from domestic groups will be. And in the end, ideas or interests governmental preferences simplistic word of theory, but of course. And then, final words, my analysis, I look at governmental statements first and look at the core assumptions that the governments wish to remain. That's why they tend to be responsible for societal demands, whether voters, whether interest groups, but so they are responsible for societal demands. Cost-dependent values embedded in the society. It's not like, for example, the questions like, should we aid or should we provide allocate aid in Central America? Very simple. So this is not what I'm looking at, but I look at more whether, for example, if Mexicans think that we belong to the American community. So this is more cost-dependent, more value-based, and more long-term than just thinking whether should we, I don't know, help Haiti because of the earthquake. So this is not that simplistic, but more cost-dependent. And so it doesn't show evidences of daily attitude, but more fundamental expectations. And then I look at the statements of lobby groups to assess the motivation for sectoral lobbying vis-a-vis the government. And in the end, I also conduct expert interviews for further support for evidences. Methodology. Well, this I will also, such kind of research. I will conduct also regarding in Turkey as well. And in the end, the PhD project will compare First of all, how, whether fields or interests prevail in this and that country, and second, which interests are involved. So I think they also have variations of interests and also ideas in countries. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. Sure, we'll have quite a few questions on the theory and the methodology and science. It's very, very intriguing. I think very exciting. We'll now turn to Melanie for her presentation. Melanie is focusing operations in six directions to Mexico. So, Melanie, you have 20 minutes from now.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. And Vishala, and I'm from university, and I'm going to present to you my PhD project, which is called Organized Violence Narratives of Forced Migration. I will specifically present to you a portion of what I just focused more on the case of return migration, but it's not everything, as you will see. So first of all, the context of my project is forced migration and organized violence. Specifically, I will look at migrants coming from Mexico and El Salvador to the US. Why am I doing this? Because, for example, if we look at the last 4 years, migration to the US has increased incredibly, which means it has reached levels of the 1980s, where there was a civil war in El Salvador. And another reason is both countries, El Salvador and Mexico, have a history of organized violence. Mexico, as you know, with the Calderon government, the end of 2006, beginning of 2007, with the combat of drug trafficking in a terrorist way, organized violence, the violence carried out by the cartels, by the military, and so on, has increased dramatically until now, still. And in El Salvador, on the other hand, have also criminal violence, especially coming from gangs, but not having increased in the past years since the early 2000s. In El Salvador, this is especially interesting because these gangs that are a factor in violence originally developed in the United States. But these persons, gang members, were imported and then continued their activities in El Salvador. Of course, another reason is, for example, in the case of Mexico, that Mexico is an important origin country for migration to the US, but also in the last years has become a transit destination. In the case of El Salvador, we have seen Mora. So in both cases, we have very peculiar and also not only that, but it's not. I'm not looking at these countries isolated, but as a region. So these factors of violence and migration are transnational. This is why I'm talking about organized violence, which is why I want to define it for you really quickly. I understand it large-scale and long-term acts of violence and threats. Violence in this case sort of as physical violence, neither marginal accidental or caused by individual behaviors, which means I'm not looking at domestic violence. It's collective actions and collective goals, which means violence has a goal, again, economic, political, religious, and is carried out by groups. For example, some examples would be the military, marshals, private security forces, etc. So it can be private or public actors, legal or illegal, and collective. It's organized this project. I'm also looking at forced migration. What I'm not understanding is classically as the United Nations definitions of standard diversity, race, etc. I want to look at forced migration as migration nowadays, especially outside this dichotomy of refugee and economic migrant. So some concepts that relate to this are, for example, migration flows, which means that migration is not only happening because of economic reasons, but for several reasons. Spiritual issues or even climate. Or another concept in this vein would be survival migration, which is migration because the human rights are violated and country or place of origin there is no remedy to violations. And another concept that I understand or I'm using for forced migration is voluntariness. Voluntariness, which means there are different factors at different points in time in the migration process that make it voluntary or not both at the same time. It's not like we have a beginning, end point, and it's all forced migration, but it's all voluntary all the time. But there are different factors like laws, like information the person has, like the networks, coercion, violence, all types that mix together and inform the migration process. So I can say that migration can be voluntary, later forced first, and voluntary. So migration in this case types and capacities of experiences of organized time. My research is a qualitative one, which means that you have seen my research question. First question is which factors of organized violence expressed in biographical narrative accounts have affected or affect migration trajectories of Mexican migrants last 30 years. Migration trajectories, I mean by this, practically the migration history of some. So what kind of factors, not only about violence has affected the migration trajectory, which factors specifically have done so. Then, to what extent do these factors of organized violence affect or cause migration trajectories? So maybe they have caused them, or maybe they have just affected them along the way. And finally, how do these experiences of organized violence impact on the life course or the life history of this person itself? So it might be that organized violence is not only a factor in their migration, but include for their whole lives. Such questions? My assumptions are that perceptions and experiences of organized violence affect its migration trajectories very much. And that organized violence is context dependent. It depends on the place and time, it depends on the history and the geographical location, how organized violence is manifested, how it then accordingly affects the migration. So, and another assumption I have is that in this region of North and Central America, organized violence and forced migration are historically and traditionally interdependent. So it's not like look at them in an isolated way, they are interdependent. And it is experienced, or the violence is experienced in different places, different stages of the migration trajectory of the. How am I approaching my project? As I said, it's qualitative, so I'm going to conduct and have been conducting narrative interviews with Mexican and Salvadoran migrants in Mexico City. This means I'm asking them about their life story. First, I will have one or two questions about their migration. It's more about listening to all of it. And then I want to analyze it with the documentary method and analysis, which means I will be looking first of all at how the narrative is structured, because this way you can see certain patterns, certain orientations for their motivation. It's one thing to ask them, okay, why did you migrate? Another thing is to just listen to their life story, see what they did. Okay, and so far I have carried out 3 biographical narrative interviews with Russian migrants so far, and 15 expert interviews with some organizations throughout Mexico. And I want to present one case which I analyzed of a Russian migrant, but really quickly because. Okay. So I will call him Manuel, but so the case of a Russian migrant, he is at about 36 years old. He's an English teacher in Mexico City. But before he was an English teacher, he was actually a gang member in the United States. He has a girlfriend and several children who live in Mexico. And I'm presenting this case not because it's representative of Russian migrants or of the journalists, but because it's illustrative or it shows the situation. So he first of all migrated to the US with his family when he was a child. And then he lived in San Diego, Minnesota, one time there, another time there, and became involved in gang activities, drug trafficking, for example. And actually, his father, or the reason his family migrated, and his father specifically, is because his father had done or was engaged in criminal activities in Mexico too, and the police. His father continued with this activity in Mexico and the US while living in. Then in 2003, he was caught, Manuel was caught and went to prison. And in 2006, he was deported straight to Mexico, where he went to Morelos first, where his family, where he still had relatives, and then to Mexico City, working as an English teacher. However, one thing I want to add is that the aspect of violence followed him from the beginning until now. I mean, I'm not talking too much about it, but even here in Mexico City, they've been in contact with police, things like that. So that's the context of this. Because I'm also looking at how context affected first I'm looking at so, for example, if we look at how he migrated in the 1980s with his family, was the economic recession in Mexico, which many families migrated to. And in the 1990s, for example, there was also this development of gaming culture, and first were very particularly rioting years in some parts of the US. This is exactly what he also became involved in games. It's also about living in the context of combating violence, which he also talks a lot about. Some more specific things, just as examples of how, for example, policies or laws have affected his migration is, for example, 1996, there was a law that used a number of offenses that subjected someone to being deported to Mexico or Central America. Since then, between 1997 and 2007, over 2 million people have been deported from the US, including Mexicans and Central Americans. And on top of that, in the early 2000s, there was also development of the strategy to combat the gangs in the US, which targeted or which he fell under. And exactly for this initiative, he was caught. So, which factors of organized violence did I find in this case? Just roughly, detail on the micro level. We have, as you can see, some laws, regulations, programs, strategies, policies. have factors like deportation or this law that led to the deportation of many persons, so this initiative that will bring up and getting about breaking up gangs. The meso level, we have to practice the groups of violent actors like police, gangs, cartels, etc. Although I haven't talked about cartels, also play a role in this biography. Then, at last, we have the micro, which is about this case. Here we have experience of violence. What does this person do? And does it really affect the life of migration children? Maybe because he once had an experience, he now is anticipating it and avoiding some. Or maybe he's fleeing some. So, to conclude, what I have found by exploratory work is that it does seem that experiences in context of violence work as influencing, and there seems to be, at least in this case, but in others, in the other group, one continuity of these factors of organized violence throughout the migration. Not just one point, then they migrate throughout. Then it's also seen that organized violence is spatial, cultural, and temporal. So in this case, for example, he became a gang member in the US, in Mexico. And finally, there also seems to be a transnational dependence of organized violence and migration. In this case, for example, it's very interesting that while he is someone with Mexican origins, very similar story also happened versus him. And finally, I still have to do a lot of work, so I still have to, yes, yes, to work. I still have to search for other cases where and search for more of these factors of violence and conclude a lot more. So, hope you could find something interesting in this. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Anyone has a question before you're leaving? Anyone would like to ask questions to the next projects? Do now before we look for comments from the panel. You don't have to leave at 11?
They have class at 11, but we're not here, we're going to class.
Okay.
But perhaps those que quieren venir para acá ustedes y ya platicamos.
Okay, so we'll continue. Thank you.
No, gracias, chicas.
And then the rest will move up front.
Absolutely. ¿Todos se la visión mi casa?
Para allá.
Okay. Nobody knows.
much. It's a little bit of comments by Dr. from University of here in the city, and then we have to take some questions. Your colleagues and yes. So please go ahead.
The two professors. Thank you, Lady. My first proposal in terms of your research. Mexico has a undefined aspiration in terms of the external every government it's a lot of change. Maybe the narrative is looking at founders of the practice of public policy in terms of operation is change. Maybe every six years. Every 6 years change the explorations. Every 6 years change the objective, the goals. And finally, it's very complicated to establish a basis of analysis in terms of Mexico has a solid trajectory in terms of international cooperation. Second, Central America. Central America is not a priority in terms of international cooperation. Maybe 30 years ago, the Mexican government defined the situation of the borders in the Central America. First, Central America is just a problem in terms of public policy. Second, Mexico don't have any kind of strategy in terms of cooperation. It depends of the government, the necessities, the ask of the government in Central America. Third, maybe the focusing of the Mexican government is in terms of priority, the war, narco traffic, traffic of weapons, or migration. Migration like not the human, not protection. In this sense, the policy of cooperation of Mexico is the type of government, the type of policy party, and in this sense, the idea driving values of development policy is general, is changed. The second is the identity of in Latin America. The narrative of Mexico or the cooperation with Mexico and Central America maybe is very human. Maybe is a great have a great values of solidarity, cooperation, comprehension. But in practice, it depends on the relation with the United States. The United States is a great partner with Mexico, not Central America. In this sense, the trajectory of the international cooperation of Mexico is the best of the equilibrium with the American government. In this sense, the identity of Latin America is changed. No exist an identity of Mexican government policy risk to Central America. This, I recommend try to propose a change of interpretation of the trajectory of operation and try to link with the history of the bilateral relation with the United States. And finally, the case of Yucatan Fund is an excellent. My concern is that the project that Yucatan Fund is an example like transversal example. for practicing in all Mexico. In my perception, Yucatan have a lot of values, stability, social homogeneity, and a social process right ready in terms of convivence and human beings, and this kind of characteristics had a great space that they found, Yucatan found works. Finally, the combined your hypothesis, your first hypothesis, American lobby and Mexican interests. My perception, there exists a combine between the Mexican interests and American lobby. Yeah? Because they create versus in Central America, the combined between the budget is American and the interest is are absolutely Mexican. Because my recommendation is try to create a new type of model in terms of the combination of the great American lobby and the great Mexican influence.
Yeah, all the roads end up in the United States, when it comes to Mexico.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments?
Or do you want to Melis to answer first? Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, first.
Thank you very much for your very useful comment. Actually, I just want to say that the relations between the United States, I think I also noticed that something I should take as a maybe intervening variable or something. I also see now that this relations with the United States or the US interests in terms of, at the moment, for example, preventing migration, then it is very much linked to Mexican development cooperation now. But before maybe for some other reasons, but anyway, I'm also aware of this. Actually, here the interviews are, and I also start noticing it that I have to add another intervening variable which includes United States. Understand that now. And secondly, for the first one, practices changes according to government. Before I was thinking to have a longer period of government, but then I was thinking again dynamics are different, and it is better to look at that one governmental period also for each country, because when you take this time period long, then it's so much work if you do a comparison. But in the end, although I think Central America is not a priority, you say, or at least development cooperation is not such a priority, the color of it. But still, there are some decisions made. And what I want to see is to see how these decisions are shaped, like how this process works. Although it was not priority, but in the end, Mexico, at local level, like now, this, for example, Mexico, they are really promoting back then as well, like establishment and it makes its role and global role. This was also in academia was just a lot, and I try to understand how this process was shaped. And in the end, if I see that development cooperation was not that priority, actually Mexico development cooperation also compared to others is not that big. Yeah? I mean, when you compare to Korea or Turkey, but in the end, Mexico is becoming also a donor now. I mean, it's not anymore a recipient. So that's why I think maybe the results will not be as strong as for the case of Turkey or Korea. They are very serious donors now, I would say, compared to Mexico, let's say, and they are not recipients anymore. think this is also very, very important. But I think we could make a good comparison. Similar, especially when you compare Turkey, middle income countries, both donors, but how it differs context. That's why I'm not so sure if even though cooperation was not that important, but still it was there. So, like I try to understand this, I thought with me idea. And by the way, about this identity, narrative, government. I heard it from other interview parties that what government says is not maybe like realizing factors. So that's why many people here told me that you should not take what government says as reality. And actually, this is also I have it in the back of my mind because yes, this narrative might not actually not be the reality. Yeah. And yes, lobby groups, American lobby and Mexican just it's a very good point. Thank you for that. I will look into that. I also find that it's
Could we perhaps this opportunity if you would like to ask a question to Yanis right away? So we missed it with Yanis. Okay?
yes.
Thank you. From Instituto Mora.
Thank you. More than a question, I have points. First, I would. That's a question. Mexico as a middle power. What does make Mexico a middle power? We know that there is a narrative around middle powers and data and these emerging powers, emerging donors, and sovereign providers. So I would like to know to what extent have you done again in this narrative and what kind of variables have you found in this term to advocate for Mexico as a middle power? Then I just right now you said, well, Mexico is becoming a donor, but I would suggest you to check data and to be careful with that term, because Mexico is a southern provider and will remain as a southern provider for a long time, as in my personal opinion, and will not become a complete donor in the short term. So Mexico is still receiving international development cooperation, maybe in terms of reciprocity with other countries, but it's still a dual partner, receives and provides. And well, regarding the comments, I really appreciate your analysis of the Yucatan Fund because it has the political and the economic background. So there you have some qualitative and quantitative approaches behind it. The Yucatan Fund has the legal and political background from the foreign policy in the huge stage. And it translated in very specific guidelines talking about financing infrastructure and economic development projects in Central America. So, regarding this, I consider that there is not, despite the success of Yucatan Fund and all that has happened in the last 10 years, there is not a convergence reached in technical and financial cooperation in the narrative, but it is in the practice. I mean, you can find a private sector, private public bilateral and regional projects financed by funds. So there is a convergence reached in technical and financial cooperation. Nevertheless, the Annex has not embedded this narrative and this convergence in their role as a development cooperation agency. So, personally, I think that MSC still lacks of that identity and practice on economic cooperation very well related to technical cooperation, despite this a reality. And well, I guess that's my. Oh, just another thing. It would be interesting if you check what how was the Calderon foreign policy developed regarding the agenda, because it was personally I find that some of the international development cooperation narrative in the Mexican government tried to tie up the national interest and regional interest in Central America with the narrative regarding the effectiveness agenda. So what happens here, what happens there, and how do I connect? Personally, that's what I think.
Very fine. We would have to make an announcement that Dr. Urbano has to leave because from the university from Ibero for urgent meetings, and but says that he will be in touch with you and for comments, especially Melanie is the expertise in migration. Would you like to add something? Okay. But should say yes, so because he has to go, and so sorry.
Yes, I have finished.
Good. Whenever we get back here.
Maybe it's why I appreciate you. Because we diagnosed it. It's I'm surprised. And just to agree on this. I would like to maintain our link in terms of extend our discussion. First, transit, origin, and destination migration. Every phase have a different narrative. When the migrant from the country have a lot of explanation. Second, when we are in the transit of Mexico, the reality also of your aspiration, and the narrative is about to be survive. And three, when arrived to the country of reception, the narrative returns in terms of exploration. But in the middle, Mexico the geographical aspiration of a migrant is if you pass the border of south, maybe I'm with, but when trying to cross Veracruz, some people change dramatically the narrative. In this sense, it depends in what moment do you realize the equity. My recommendation is it's very complicated to realize interviews in Mexico without the Salvadorian have a different level of skills, different tools of your social situation, respectively all of the Salvadorian transit. Maybe the Salvadorian change their situation terms of realize the expectation of familiar construction through familiar structure. And the narrative changed from the category in France. My recommendation is to realize two interviews in the south, in Chiapas specifically. I will try to super you one because you need review the change of narrative. The narrative is not only it's change, it's a dynamic narrative. Second, the capacities of the response to the migrant floods. Mexico don't have any kind of resource to manage a migration. No existent interest. And in the same time, I in my opinion, with many, the interest of migration policy in Mexico, it depends absolutely the influence of the United States. Mexico is a part of the perimeter of security of the United States, and in this sense, the treatment of the migration flows is synchronized of the security policy of Mexico. And this says the capacity of managing the migration. It depends on the relation with the United States. Finally, the factors of regional of migration violence and different factors. I recommended include the environmental question. Is racism. Central America is maybe the most affected around the world of the change of climate change. Yes. It says you don't integrate the narrative of climate change in the narrative of slavery. Maybe we miss the factor. Finally, I don't know, Mexico is divided. I'm trying to insist in this sense. Mexico is divided, and it depends the transit of migrants will change the narrative. Mexico City maybe is a great space in terms of realizing new, but the answers maybe not link, not have any kind of link to the reality, great reality. I recommended trying to change or extend your interview with other migrants in different zones, and maybe complete the narrative that is a cycle is not aligned. The narrative.
Thank you. So, will you stay on for the campus or not? Or will you stay on?
Thank you very much for your comments. Yeah, the problem about the change of narratives, depending on, at what moment, at what stage of the trajectory is this person. Yes, yeah, I'm thinking about it too. I'm still in the process of trying to find which stage is the best to interview them, the persons. So I agree. I have to find the moment, the stage of the migration trajectory. But it's like, yeah. And then interviews in the south, maybe also. Here, at the moment, I only want to look at Mexico first. I contemplate to do it in the south and north interviews too. So it depends on how difficult it is, because the access to the interviews. Because I already I tried, and it seems it's incredibly difficult to do interviews in south of Mexico.
Maybe, sorry, this is about community.
I mean, this is just the first exploratory sketch, but when I analyze further, I will definitely incorporate it because it's a reality in migration policy. And the climate factor, yeah, thank you. I will see if it comes up in the interviews. Of course, I will also incorporate it as a context. So, of course, it's important. So, yeah, thank you. I'm really happy that you're here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Urbano. Have a good answer.
Maybe yours?
Oh, it was Laura's here.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think we will proceed then with the post-crisis planning and the main reactions, and then we will open for some other questions. Both of you, I also have lots of questions, but so please.
We have maybe later, maybe we can take a lot of time.
Okay, yes, absolutely. It's fine. Let's do this. Other guests. Yeah. Could you tell us your name, where you do come from?
Yes, my name is Mora Garcia. I come from Hunan, from the science, from the political science and social faculty in the University of the University. And well, I'm here as a guest. I wanted to come and hear these great comments that you both have made. I want to congratulate you for the short time. You have shown me great things, and yes, of course I have the comments, but mostly I'll start with questions. First, I'll start with Alex. I want to know more about the student fund because I've never heard of it. And second, what do you expect to see from your studies? Whether it's the material interest what is going to improve Mexico, or is the social ideas what's going to improve so as a political and economic what do you call it? Middle and emerging country, right?
You mean like the background? I'm not actually looking at whether they play a role in government decisions.
Yes. That is a tricky question.
That's a question which I'm looking for. And like at the moment, I don't quite understand. This is difficult, but I have conducted some interviews with business associations. And for example, what they told me that there was no, they didn't even know about what's going doing or visual example. But of course, this is only one interview I had. I one more two, and in the end, well, from in general, from development cooperation, I have interest to play a role. But if you are a development cooperation partner like Mexico, maybe that interest might not be that important because the amount of aid or cooperation is very limited. So that's why maybe it doesn't interest companies or like business so much in Mexico. And that's why I'm just thinking, okay, maybe ideas play a role, but of course at the moment I can't see the space. Maybe analyze it more in detail.
Because there are two projects nowadays in Mexico that have to be controlled with both material and ideal. Which two of them, one of them is the Tren Maya. It's supposed to go all the way in the Merida. The other one is the airport. national airport that was cancelled in Mexico that is now going into Santa Lucia Airport. Those two are projects that are in a great conflict, both with material and ideal. There has been such disagreement with our president decisions, and well, there isn't nowadays a monetary policy that can guide us. There ain't any policy nowadays that can provide us with the further plans or the goal for this for Lopez Obrador agenda. I do believe that ideas have strong power with the society. Nevertheless, the problem is that government, politically speaking, the government has a power over the people. And that is a problem that has been ever since, I guess, 1980s, or with our president, Fox, ever since the age of Partido Revolucionario of the PRI. And that is a problem that we have seen among all the people, because naturally, as Professor Urbano said, the Central America does not play a part, an important part for the negotiations or as a project for improvement in Mexico. It's more that we have more communication with the United States or Canada. Those are our principal trading partners. And I hope for you to change your panorama to a different new ideas, just like Professor Urbano just. And let's hope for you to think and find what you are really looking for or you are expecting.
It also makes it very interesting if Mexico has space. Because if all the donors are the same, let's say, interest, then it would be boring, you know? In the end, I would also like that. Because, for example, in Turkey's case, I can say that it was, well, in media, it was very shown that it was the construction sector played a role. And the government did, for example, go to Africa with business people, say, okay, we come here, we do construction, and then we invest. It's really on the news they showed it. So we also don't know if actually they play a role. It has to be analyzed, but in the end, what I see. But when I see Mexico, I think I'm also start thinking that maybe yes, we'll see. I mean, it's good to have this divergences. What I expect. Yes, divergences. Do you have any questions? For our debate?
No, I was about to ask for say about to ask people from other parts of the country. I come from the north, so from western, that I think it's very different to other part of the north. And in that, I think if you can, you could see also how the people is feeling that migrants from Salvador and from other parts of Central America are here, because historically we are a country that is sending migrants to the north, to the US, but now we are facing this problem that now we are receiving migrants, and it looks like we don't want to do that other part of the history. We want to send people to the US, but we don't want to receive, because we are not ready, supposed people to receive it. So, Tijuana, for example, the border city, is receiving a lot of people that are able to cross to US, and are other people is decided to stay there. For example, that people from Haiti or people from Central America. So I think it could be important to ask to migrants how they feel how they feel to stay in Mexico, how if there were differences in the south, in the north, in Mexico City, because I feel that Mexico City is completely different to other parts of the country. You know, Mexico City, maybe they will be, maybe I think, I don't know, they will be more positivity received that if they stay in South states in Mexico because they feel they cannot receive it, they are poor, we cannot do anything for you, come back to your country. But it's the same words that we as a Mexican receive in the United States. So I think it's not like we are asking to the US government, hey, you should respect human rights, you should respect our Mexican there. But when they come here, we are not doing that. So maybe, yeah.
Could I another person or ladies that also cook?
I also have some.
Oh,
We'll talk later.
yeah. What I have for women and men have different experiences of organized violence, no? And I was also thinking if you are taking into consideration then the role of being a victim or a perpetrator. If you see that as a my experience or you are going to disentangle, then that experience of organized violence depending on who you're interviewing. Yeah. Because it's very important, and I also wonder if you're considering a gendered approach to organized violence and how big your sample to begin with. Yes.
Comment. It's an interesting question. I mean, asking them about how they think about staying in Mexico. I could do that. It would be interesting. I mean, you are right. Mexico City is very different. I have to justify why I choose this or that. This other place, or I have to explain. Yes, I want to interview men and women. The moment I men, but an explorer choice, so it was can I do these interviews? Are the people interested in talking about this? But yes, I want to ask men and women, and I want men. Ideally, I do want to ask perpetrators and ask victims of violence. I don't necessarily want to. There are only perpetrators. If I see that narrative or experience is both, then it is both. So ideally, I would like to. I don't know how feasible it is because, for example, this person that I presented now, I think that was just luck that I found someone who was also a perpetrator. But yeah, ideally, I want to men and women perpetrators. Yeah.
I was thank you. For medicine, I think it's very interesting because in the literature about emerging powers and international cooperation, we see a lack of local to understand the domestic level, the preference formation of governments actually then come to the conclusion that this should be our priorities in our integration, the objectives, and how we will go about it. Regarding this question of preference formation in the international cooperation in the case of Mexico, stemming either from material interests or society reasons, which of them prevails. No? I think yes, you have a very, very tricky, very, very as a starting point, because I think it's both. No? You probably find a lot of evidence that go in both directions. No? So maybe you could have what determines when the driving force for preference formation is tilting towards either societal ideas or material interests. No? For example, if it's more societal ideas, well then they could be both endogenously and exogenously used. It could come, for example, from an exogenous factor, it could be the earthquake in Haiti, but it could also be endogenous from, as we see in Bruno Figueroa's work, about 100 years from Mexico's national cooperation history, that Mexico has been actually quite consistent with their interest to help Central America. Well, the first action was in Galveston, Texas, when it was a hurricane, early 20th century. But then Mexico, repeated times, it actually provided assistance in terms of emergency aid, educational initiatives, and infrastructure, and there was also a compradora, and energy. So all this, it's a cumulative experience. So if you say that, yes, it has also been that part of Mexican population's solidarity with the South, because after all, if we talk about the three regions, we have a South region which has a lot of cultural ties, yes, with the South America, and with the Central American countries. It's really free Mexico. So the way, yes, both endogenous and exogenous, you can find both of them in the scale of ideational factors as well as the material. And as Figueroa was saying, so the U.S. Influence in Mexico in economic terms and security terms cannot be overlooked. We need to incorporate that somehow. For example, then if you look at the material economic interests pushed by private sector interests, yes, they can also be American influences, but especially if you see the Mera plan from 2008. So the Yucatan Fund and the Mera plan, at one point maybe are there any interlinkages or how do they relate to each other if they at all do that? How were they presented in the news, and how the government rhetorically put them forward as part of Mexico's foreign policy in this region. And what Clara was saying, that the narrative, constructing the narrative of Mexico's international development, what Mexico portrayed were part of its interests as a global, at the global arena, as covered, and Paris Declaration on aid effectiveness. How can we see that reflected in the package of measures in the Yucatan plan, the convergence of the two narratives, at the domestic level and the global level, and then how can we see the government of preference formation coming out of that convergence, if there was such a preference? How did that then spur the government to make some concrete the steps taken in a preference formation? Can we see that be articulated both from the global arena, its commitments there, as well as then this more ideational inspired legacy from solidarity Central American countries. So I think it's very much a combined thing. It's more like when and where in certain political conjunctures, that you see tilting more towards the ideational factors, more towards material interests. And also the Mexican power, how do you insert in the literature? Mexico is very much one of a kind, sui generis, which any of countries is sui generis. But for Mexico, it's this dual role in the region country. There again, you have the U.S. also, because we also have almost 30 million Mexicans in the U.S. living. So how do they impact on our international development cooperation now. And part of the audience. We have part of those also expressing views on support or not support. Now, and I also wonder to what extent societal how shared are these things somehow of the population? Or is this very much part of the elite? Not just in Mexico, but actually also in Turkey. Yeah. Because how shared is that? You ask the Mexican industry, do you know about the Mexican? Do you know about our media doesn't really do a good job in telling people, everyday Mexicans, that, well, we have this fund and we are sharing money for people in Honduras. But we should share with Chiapas first. Our people in Oaxaca, there, we want. So, I think that societal, the concept of society is how much of an inclusive initiative is this on the whole system. Stemming from the
So, let's start.
Yeah.
So we need to go.
Basically, thank you.
Yes, we can again if you wish.
Thank you for your very constructive comments. And I want to start with the last one, because to what extent can we talk about it? As I also mentioned, societal ideas does not necessarily mean that I am looking at what society expects from development policy, or what they actually, whether they know about it, or whether they are for or against it, whatsoever. Because, well, what tricky is here, I mean, this liberal theories are very much well known for economic population and financial issues, and more like political economic. But development cooperation is also part of it, but also not. So it's a bit more ideational and altruistic, but at the same time. That's why we can't really actually find from society that they think about development cooperation, or whether they even know about it, we don't know. But if you see different country cases, we see that there are specific attributes to development different, and which actually I believe comes from society, but not really the conscious level that society wants it, but that government or elite uses it for justification of their action. So that's why I'm not really looking only at this, whether they know about MXC, no seems like also for Turkey, or for Korea. Actually, Korea started promoting this, like, we are helping this, so like creating consciousness in society, but not every country does that. And that's why the idea was to look at the ideas, but more like path-dependent ones, value-based ones, which actually exist in society and which are used by the elites or government for justification. So because the idea is that they want to be re-elected or elected, and that's how they justify the actions in the eyes of society or models. So because we see in Turkey, let's say Turkey started also identifying its development cooperation under South-South cooperation. But Turkey has been OECD country and it's an observer to DAC, and they have been reporting to DAC for many years now. And you can't really put Turkey into South-South context so much. But then now they are started doing this also with this crisis in Syria, and also then when they started doing the with African countries like Sudan. So it's like the narrative of the government, since the government is also conservative, they started talking about helping Muslim brothers. But before, Turkey started the aid in after Soviets and in Central Asia to Turkic nations. the idea was to integrate them to the neoliberal system after Soviets, yeah. And then the idea was to, for Turkey, was that the justification, because we share cultural ties, and that we have linguistic ties, so we help, so we integrate. But with this government, it changed, and it became more Islamic, let's say, Turkey, or like linguistic. And that's why I feel like this is coming from society, not consciously, but the society, how society looks, or the voters, or because they vote anyway for this government, and they expect government to be conservative. So that's why governments, just for justification, they use this type of ideation aspect. This is the main point for that. And second of all, about the middle power thing, yes, I actually added this to my presentation, but I'm not really looking at them as middle powers. Because I did a comparative analysis between Korea and Turkey, and I saw that Korea is very much eager to be middle power, but Turkey is not. Even we can't really put Turkey into context of middle power, and Mexico we can't also do that. But that's why but of course I studied putting them into middle power. Also governments claiming that and so on. So I'm not really supporting that idea so much because depends on from what perspective.
It's more for you like the the southern border donors. So the southern donors didn't necessarily do not want to be any most powerful. Oh, to go in with that, instead of the most powers.
Yes.
Southern donors, southern provider.
Or it's more like, let's say, emerging economies, like recently, and then emerging economies doing development. But because for middle power, I think what's tricky is that you can't really, you can any country middle power. Not a small power and not a great power that is middle. But for middle power theory, but it suggests that for middle to be a middle power, there are some specific aspects. To adopting a middle power identity, for example, what is it? Actually Mexico does it. I think that's why Mexico is sometimes considered that like being multilateral, being like a mediator, and being more like peaceful or humanitarian, this type of attributes, or being playing role in niche areas of international politics, not necessarily interfering in the affairs of like great powers, but more like. So, I'm not really looking at them as middle powers, but it depends on how you want to. So,
and maybe you want to give some comments as well.
Meredith and I will have a chance to talk later. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for being here, and thank you for being interested in sharing. And thank you both for being part of this. I know at least you are interested in studying the master, so I think it's very, very, very good that we have. I don't know about you, and I also want to join them in saying thank. I mean, I very much like the way you presented, both of you, research. I think it was also inspiring for my students. I just talked to them very briefly that the way that you're presenting your theoretical approach, as well as your hypotheses and etc. I think it was very interesting for our students. I would say first to Melanie that my only comment when I was listening to you is regarding statistics, because you have been interviewing people, but when you talk about the number and millions of people that are every day migrating in the same context that you just told us, how are you gonna? You didn't have to answer to me that. It was just my only concern, or my concern is how are you going to statistically present your data or your histories and your interviews when you will talk to 1, 10, 20 people, but we are talking about millions of people. This crime or violence. I think it's very important. And I think it's very interesting that you're able to interview people and and know their stories, because it's coming from bottom up and top down, right? So congratulations on that. I do have a lot of comments on for you, Melis, and I'm very inspired and I'm very eager to talk to you about my experience in the government. But for now, I will just say this emerging, and because you were interested in that, this emerging donors and emerging countries, I do not agree when a lot of people, including you, say that Mexico is becoming a donor and is not only a recipient anymore, or Mexico is becoming important. Because you have to see that Mexico has been a donor to Central America for centuries, not years, for centuries. It has not been part of the international cooperation theory or the international cooperation studies, but it has been there. And it has been there, of course, in the same way that you presented, and I love that, how you present interest, I did copy it here. Material interests, governmental, society ideas. I think it's the first time that I see this approach, and I'm very sure that you will be quoted a lot of times later after you've published it. Yeah, they will, because it's the first time that I've seen this approach. But what I want to say is regarding Mexico's role in international cooperation, it's very complex. I'm amazed that you have decided to study Mexico, because it's kind of even hysterical, no? It is very, very, very difficult, because we are both roles. We are donors, we are recipients. We are recipients, and I want to stress that. We are recipients, we are still recipients. We're a very important recipient, but especially in credits, not also grants, but loans. And of course, I just did a research, consultation on the OECD statistics 2 weeks ago, because I was invited by Spain to talk about the cooperation with Spain. And yeah, when you see Mexico as a recipient, in regards to the whole picture of the global ODA or the Latin American ODA, Mexico, it's less than 1%. But still, it's important. We are still recipients, and yes, it's not too much when you compare it to our GDP, or when you compare it to others. But when you talk to specific institutions who are receiving that millions of euros or millions of dollars, it is important, and it is something. What I will say is that perhaps Mexico's cooperation is becoming more visible, and that is related to the law, and that is related to the context itself, and the architecture of the data architecture. The other thing is that I agree totally with what Urbano just said. That, and I'm surprised, because I read a little bit later, because I was being interviewed in another doctorate student at Mexico. I will ask her to give you my interview, because I was just talking to her about this. You have to see the results not as a result of that moment, but as a result of something that has been on the event for years, especially at the multilateral arena. You don't become to a policy, and you don't come to a final result just because of what happened in one day or two or a month. It's a result of several years. And when you talk about multilateral decisions, I wouldn't agree that multilateral institutions decide. Because you have to remember that multilateral institutions are international bureaucracy, which means multilateral institutions take decisions on a multilateral level, which means it's the decision of all the members. You will never by the that take part of that committee. So I will say that we have to be very, very strict on that idea. But when you talk about the bilateral cooperation, it's horrible trying to understand Mexico's bilateral cooperation, I can tell you. But I think it's great that you are focusing on the Yucatan Fund, because I've always said to my students that the easiest cooperation to analyze is the economic and the financial cooperation, precisely because you have to take note of the loans and the money, and it's a matter of invest, and etc., it's the easiest to look at. And when I was listening to you about the Chiquetan Fund, I just came back to all those meetings I had to take part at some with the Ministry of Finance regarding the Mesoamerican Corporation. And precisely at the Chiquetan Fund, I will close saying that when we talk about economic cooperation, and there is economic cooperation, you have to also think that it's a matter of interest, let's say in this case for Mexico, that the region of Central America, in this case, has a good infrastructure to receive Mexican investors. I mean, it's of our interest that they do exactly, that they have a good economy, good railways, good transport.
New markets.
Exactly, new markets, because as a government, you are also promoting your companies to go there and invest, which it will also have a good way back for Mexico's development. So this is another, I do have a lot more comments. I don't want to take more time here. We will talk later. But I think it's very important what you are reviewing and what you are analyzing, and you will have very interesting. And thank you both again for being here.
Thank you. These are the certificates. Yes, there's an HR by. So thank you for your interest, and maybe we'll have some time to chat with you today or any other day here. Thank you for coming also.
Gracias. Muchas gracias. Vámonos.